Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and get rolling. If anybody else joins us, cool. If not, I just got a couple things to go over. It's not going to take much time. If you got any questions, feel free to throw them my way, um, and then we'll just see how long it takes. So, I've been getting some questions about how to use assistant coaches in practice, and I think that that's a really good question actually that coaches have, because you have these people who want to help out, but how do we best utilize them? Um, the first year that I was an assistant coach, I stood and did much of nothing most of the time. Partly because I was probably a little scared. My head coach was a Hall of Fame head coach at the college level. He'd coached Division I basketball, and like it was intimidating. You don't want to do the wrong thing. But I also had a good enough relationship with him where I went to him and was like, "What do you want me to do?" Like I'm just standing there and waiting, and he was really gracious with talking to me. So having that relationship really helps. But couple of ideas, things that I enjoy and that I try to use with my assistant coaches is the first one is give them part of practice to run. So they may not be great in every aspect of the game, but if you have somebody who's willing to give you their time, make sure that you utilize them. So maybe they're running the dribbling portion of practice. You do a ball handling. Maybe you just give them warm-ups. Hey, you be in charge of the first, 15 minutes, have warm up, stretch, get, a one or two drills in to get their body rolling, and then you take over. I think there's a lot of ways that you can do it. Now, I did have two young assistant coaches when I coached in college one time, and I gave them the scrimmage portion of practice. And that was a disaster. So I learned my lesson, and partly because they were young and they thought it was their time to kind of take over rather than reinforce what we'd been doing. And it changed the dynamic of practice. And the players, you could just see on their face, like, oh, this is not what we've been doing. This is not what coach told us to do. So I had to give some more clarity to what I was doing. So I don't want you to give them part of practice without any direction. Because that can go against you. But give them a part of practice with some parameters. Hey, I need you to pick 3 dribbling drills. I need you to find 3 shooting drills. I need you to run our warm-ups, that kind of thing, and then give them that power. As you get used to it, then you may be able to give them some more. So that's the first thing. Give your assistant some responsibility and practice, but give them some direction. Second thing is allow them to have a voice. My dad was my assistant coach for the last 7 years, and I loved having him. He's my JV coach now, but I loved having him as an assistant. But he'd come to me with something and say, "Hey, I think the guy should know this or do this." And my first comment to him was, "Well, tell him. I mean, you have a voice. When your assistant coaches have a voice in practice, they also have a voice in your locker room. They also have a voice when it's game time. They have a voice when players come out of the games, because you don't have a chance to talk to every kid who leaves or comes out of the game. Your assistant coach does. If they never say anything in practice, their voice doesn't mean a whole lot when they come out of games. So give your assistant coach that voice in practice. If they don't have anything to say, great. But if they're constantly bringing things to you, that should go to everybody. Hey, I appreciate you telling me, but let's go ahead. Why don't you tell them? Blow the whistle and give your coach a chance to use their voice. Now, part of that comes with the comfort level you have with that person, because just like my first example, if you just tell them to say stuff and it's not in line with what you are talking about, that certainly can hurt. But if you notice that, hey, we're getting on the same page, or hey, that's a really good idea, don't take their idea. Say, hey, Coach Smith has something to say. Let's everybody, pay attention here real quick. Give them the floor, and you'll get more and more comfortable with them. So that's the second one, is make sure your assistant coaches have a voice. The third one specifically has to do with games. And with games, give your assistant coaches, I like to give them the choice. Do you want to coach the game, or do you want to keep a stat? Some coaches are perfectly fine keeping a stat. And if that's what they want to do, there's lots of things that they can keep. And maybe this will be a call we go over sometime, maybe. But you can keep an offensive efficiency rating and a defensive efficiency rating chart, which tracks how many points per possession you have. You can have them actually keep stats like assists and rebounds and points and things like that if you want. Shot charts are great. Have them, where are we shooting from? Are we making them? Are we missing them? Because while you may have some stats, like I have somebody on my bench who has an iPad, and they can give me some general team stats. I also have my which was my JV coach. He's my assistant coach now. I flip-flopped my assistant, my JV this year. But that coach, Coach O is his name, he would keep a special stat for me. All right, in practice, we work on tips. I need to know how many tips we get. Or in practice, we worked on making sure that we are sprinting the lanes. I need you to pay attention to who's sprinting the lanes. So that's not kept in the stat chart where somebody's actually plugging in our assists and our attempts and our rebounds and things like that. So, but that's what he's comfortable with. Now, we just had this conversation on Saturday. I said, Coach O, you've always kind of kept the special stat for me, but now you're going to be the assistant. Do you still want to keep that special stat, or would you like to coach the players? And he said, you know what? I hadn't thought about it. Let me think about it a little bit more. And ultimately, I think he'll probably want to coach the players, but I'm letting him direct that a little bit. If he's not comfortable coaching the players, I'm not going to make him do that. But if he is comfortable, he's in practice every day. He sees what we do. He knows what's going on. So we'll allow him to do that. So have them have a role, let them have some say in what that role is going to be, and then kind of mold that, whatever they want to do, into what you want. So let me go down two different directions here. If it's a stat, maybe it's general stats or it's a special stat. Whatever it is, you provide the direction for that stat. If it is coaching the players, then it has to be some direction. It's all right, when they come out of the game, the first thing I want you to be able to tell them is something they did well. And then I want you to give them something to focus on the next time they go into the game. So they don't have to know exactly why I took them out. Like sometimes I'll turn around and I'll say, look, they aren't running the floor hard enough. You got to talk to them about it. And then they know. Other times they just come out because it's ready. They've played 3 or 4 minutes. It's time to sub them out. There's no real reason behind it. Well, my assistant coach should be paying attention to the game well enough to say, look, you're rebounding the ball really well today, but when you're driving it, that kick out is there. So I want you to look at the kick out the next time you get in. Give them some direction. Don't just say, hey, talk to the players. It's fine, but you're the head coach. The more you use your voice and give direction, you're not telling them everything to say, but you're reinforcing what you want to have done. And that's going to give you more respect amongst your players and your coaching staff. And it's going to seem like you have a plan, you know what you're doing. When you just give it flippantly, like, hey, I want you to talk to the players when they come out of the game. Now, all of a sudden, you let them decide everything that's going on. And if you and your coach haven't worked together for a long time, I think that can create I don't really know why coach took you out. You were playing really good. I don't really know what coach was talking about. And that's what we want to stay away from. They don't mean to do that, but it's like they're trying to fill that awkwardness of they came out of the game. What am I supposed to say? So I think those two things helped me as an assistant. And when I was an assistant in college, that direction gave me confidence in supporting the head coach and knowing that I was doing the right things. So that's something that I've always tried to do with my coaches as well. And in terms of ideas, I guess this would be the fourth thing, is I always tell my coaches, bring your ideas to me. Understand that I'm not going to use 100% of your ideas, but the more ideas I have, that's more information I can make decisions with. So at halftime, I let every coach speak. What are you seeing that's good? What are you seeing that's bad? After games, I let each of them tell me what their thoughts are. I don't always agree with them, but it's not an argument. I'm just taking in the information from them. And then in practice, same thing. You can come to me with new drills, a new play idea, something like that if you want to. I may not use it all. Understand that. But know that I do want your opinion and I will use some of it. And anytime I use it, I try to give credit to my assistants. I think that gives them some power, makes them feel good about like I'm contributing, makes the players look at them differently. But give those assistants a voice with the caveat, the buck stops with you. Okay, it's not their team, it's your team. So now when I say assistants, I'm talking about a JV coach that may help you out, a freshman coach that might sit on your bench, a 7th grade coach that might be there, or a straight up assistant. Doesn't matter. Those coaches are coaches who all in my program have some sort of role during our games. So I try to give them some direction. So those are really the 4 things that I wanted to cover. There's a couple of questions that people sent in. I'm going to answer those as well. But either coach that's on here right now, do you guys have specific questions or comments for your situation? And if not, that's okay. All right. Let me get back over to the comments that were sent in, and I will try to answer those as well. All right. One of them doesn't really have to do with assistant coaches. It has to do more with how many plays do you have in your playbook? And actions. That's it. Okay. So for me, we're a motion style system. So we run off of actions. We teach the kids how to make decisions on the fly. We do have a couple of quick hit plays. So I would say I probably have 3 or 4 quick hit plays that we will utilize at some point. Some of are just end of game situation type stuff, but we have a system in place. So we have a system for breaking a press. We have a system in place for our half court offense. We have a system in place for our half court defense. And I'm happy covering those things in another call or one-on-one with any coach that wants to know more about those things. But in that system of half court offense, we might have 3 quick hit plays. But the reason I say it's a system is if that play breaks down, we know what to go to next because it's just part of this motion offensive system we use. So it's not like the play broke down, nobody knows what to do. I think that's the best way to do it, strictly because it's harder to scout that way and our players can adjust on the fly. So how many plays is too many? That's a tough question. Depends on your team. I've had some teams that probably could handle a playbook that maybe were 10 or 12 plays. And I've had teams that, getting 3 in is a struggle. Kind of depends on their basketball IQ. But as a coach, I'm most comfortable playing on the fly, reading and reacting to things, not calling set plays. I think the kids slow down. They have to think too much and we're much easier to scout. So I guess that would be my answer to that question. And if anybody's got a question about that, feel free to let me know. And let's see, there was one other question here. It has disappeared from it. But I think the premise of the question was when you have assistant coaches, like how much responsibility do you give them in practice, which I talked to a little bit. Always give them something to be in charge of because they're there for a reason. But you don't have to give your whole practice over to them. One thing I didn't mention was like my assistant coach might have our shooting drills for that day or that week even, but I always break it down. All right, we're going to work on this part of our offensive actions. On this end, I'm going to take these 6, you take those 6 down there. Or I got the bigs, you get the guards. So we will have talked about what we want to do, but I'm not paying attention to the guards when they're on the other end of the gym. I'm paying attention to the bigs and they have the guards. Then we might flip-flop and switch them. But they know they have that part of practice on their own. I'm not looking over their shoulder. So that's another way I give my assistants a little bit of power and a little bit of voice in our practices. Depends on how comfortable your assistant is with that stuff. But that would be, I think that's what the question was, although it did disappear on me here. All right, so those were the 2 that were sent in. Anything else I can cover? I don't want to just talk to talk if you guys have anything.
We'll be 2 really young coaches. So what advice would you have? And we're teaching girls as well on the girls high school varsity side. What advice would you have for 2 young coaches coming in and doing that?
Are the young coaches the varsity coaches, like you're sharing the responsibility, or are these 2 young assistant coaches?
No, I'll be the head coach. This will be our 2nd year. And then our assistant, he was at the junior high level and is coming up. And I'm 27 and he's like 25. And so 2nd year varsity, and then this will be his first time in the high school ranks.
Yeah. So I think whether you're young or not isn't going to matter a whole lot. You need to have a plan for each practice. So if you have a plan for practice and what you want to accomplish, it's easy for you to say, okay, I'm going to take, the lead in these areas, which will be most of them probably. And I want you to take the lead in this specific area. So maybe it's rebounding, rebound is a pretty safe thing. So it's his first time coaching at the high school level is all right. You might even come up with a drill. Here's the drill that we're going to use for rebounding. I'd like you to explain it, and I'd like you to kind of organize it, and I'm going to be there to assist you. Now, the hard part is, as a head coach, is deciding when they don't do it the exact same way that you would do it. You got to fight the urge to interrupt them, because when you interrupt them or you change it on them, the kids will look at the assistant coach and not trust what they say. So let it play out, or add to it if you need to, that, hey, one piece he left out was, we're going to time this for a minute, or we're going to keep score. You can add to it, but when you say, you know what, coach, I think we need to do this instead, that's the urge. And I fight it too. I've been coaching 20 years, and my dad, I love him. He doesn't explain things like I do, and he doesn't have to, but I had to fight the urge to correct it, because the way he's doing it isn't necessarily wrong. And if something does need to change, we talk about it after practice and we change it. But rebounding is a pretty safe one that you can get away with. The idea that you have to give that coach, since you guys are so close in age, you have to let them understand that you're the head coach and the final decision ends up being yours, and you want their input, and you'll work with them, but ultimately there only can be one final voice, and that's going to be yours. And the way I said it probably sounds a little bit harsh, but if you set that up ahead of time, it's going to make the season a lot easier, because girls are going to go to, or boys, doesn't matter, are going to go to the assistant coach first, and they're going to say, I don't know why coach did this. I don't know why coach has me playing this position. I don't know why coach told me. Well, the assistant is always the good guy, always. So you need to let them know that, hey, we're on the same team. We can talk about it. I'm going to make some decisions. And if you're not sure, ask me so I can let you know. That way we have a similar approach to whatever that player is asking. But I've never been a believer in the good cop, bad cop. I know some coaches like that. The head coach is going to be this hard-nosed bad cop, and the assistant coach is going to be the one who comes in and is a savior and is a good cop. I don't like that. I think a consistent message is the best. So that would be my advice to you, is make sure that I want your ideas, but ultimately, I'll have to make that final decision, and then we kind of move forward on it. Once they understand that, they have a voice in practice, I think they get pretty comfortable. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, anything. Now, Coach Romaine, are you going to have an assistant this year? I know it's your first year. My first year, I didn't have an assistant. And oh my goodness, life is a whole lot easier when you have one, but sometimes you don't.
I do. I have the assistant coach that was on the staff last year is coming back, so she's got some familiarity with the program and everything. So, so she'll be on staff with me.
Excellent. Excellent. Pretty good relationship there to start with, or is this a brand new relationship?
Brand new. We've only met once, and hasn't been able to come to a lot of our stuff because she's older, so she just had a medical procedure done and everything, so she's off right now. But I've talked to a few of the girls, and they all seem to love her, so that'll be good.
Good.
No, it was good about the point that you said about just even kind of letting the assistant know why you pull them out, because when I was my last few years at junior high, I had one of the parents who volunteered for me for the last 2 years to be my assistant, and I never did that. I'd see somebody not hustling, I just pull them out and nothing would ever get said. I just expect them to read my mind, that they knew why they were pulled out of the game. And
well, one thing, and I'll play off that a little bit, is as a player, I always wanted to know why I came out. And I wasn't mad always, but I just wanted to know why. And so when I do get a chance to talk to a player that comes out, I'll tell them, like, if there's a specific reason, like, you're talking to the referees, you got to knock that off. That's going to get us in trouble. I'll tell them that, because I made a decision specifically about it. But in our system, players will play roughly 3 to 4 minutes on the game clock, and then they come out. And so a lot of times they just are subbed out because it's the way the flow of the game has gone. Now, if there's a lot of free throws or something being shot, it might be a little bit more than that. But that's when I expect, the assistant coach to be able to to just say something to them. Like every time a kid comes out, a coach should have something to say to them. And I think in a positive way. Now, when I say positive, it can be a corrective way. You're hustling really, really hard, but we, 2 turnovers in a row. We got to make sure we take care of the ball. So the positive is you're hustling. I don't like just to have kids come out and just beat them up over something, because I look back at when I coach, man, there's 50 decisions I might have done differently if we could play that game over. But you're making real time decisions, and you're not going to always make the right one. Same with the players. So I do like to have at least one positive and then a one corrective thing. Typically, only time it's negative is if they've really put themselves in a bad spot, bad sportsmanship. They do something completely ridiculous, which doesn't happen very often, thankfully. But then it's all right, this isn't going to be a positive conversation. So,
yeah.
All right, coaches. Well, that's all I had for you today. You guys feel free to email me, Coach Romaine. I will get this one up. You're here on the call, so you heard it, but I'll get this one up in a little bit more timely fashion now that I have a system down for that. But I appreciate you guys coming. If I can help with anything, Matt at CoachMattDennis.com, shoot me an email and we'll figure it out.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. See ya.